Swear to God. I had a little bit of confidence initially. I had a little bit of confidence that they were going to do a full push behind Abdul. I am definitely worried. It's not like Abdul al-Sayed is a socialist either. That's what's so crazy about it. He's not a socialist. He's a capitalist, and they still won't back him. What are we doing, man? What are we doing? Are we the party? Are we the anti-Trump party? Or are we the pro-Israel or bust party? It's crazy.
So let's address and get your thoughts on the idea of open borders. Do you believe that anybody who wants to enter the country should be able to enter, even if they do it breaking the law?
Well, Martha, I'm not a supporter of open borders, but I'm also not a supporter of having an agency kidnapping Americans off the street like ICE has, where you have untrained people, 19-year-olds, they pulled off the street and gave, guns to. That's not how we do things in America. I think that we need to have law and order, but the only way to have law and order is to have trained individuals following the law. These are paperwork violations for the most part. The data doesn't show that you have mass amounts of immigrants killing people. Some people show anecdotes and the one-off incidents, but the fact is, we had good bipartisan legislation that Democrats tried to get passed through the Congress, and unfortunately, Donald Trump killed it.
Let me ask you this. First of all, as you know, ICE would dispute what you're saying there. I've spent time with ICE agents in Texas. They're hardworking. They're upholding the laws that exist on the books.
Yeah, hardworking to do crimes, dude. Yeah, okay. I don't give a shit that they're hardworking. They're causing chaos. They're a lawless, unaccountable rogue agency operating at the behest of the president, who's a psycho himself. Doesn't matter if they're working hard.
That if you enter the country illegally, and especially if you have a criminal record or a detainer against you, you have to be removed. And when they wake up in the morning and they show up at work, they have assignments that are given to them to remove people who are criminal or who have remove orders against them. Do you have any problem with someone who fits that criteria being apprehended and removed from our country?
Well, I just don't think it's a good idea to take someone who committed a murder and say, go back home and live free and enjoy the rest of your life. If someone comes to this country and they commit murder or violence, we have American jails that we can put them in and make sure they never see daylight again. But the idea that, we pick somebody off the street that committed murder, and by the way, it's not that many people we're talking about here. We're talking about a very small number of people with these criminal records.
That may be,
Most people that come to this country don't have criminal records.
Okay, so let's talk about the specific instances where they do, because there have been thousands of people who have.
ICE is not a regular law enforcement agency. They have no crime or criminal apprehension jurisdiction. They pick up people with criminal records from the prisons because law enforcement, local law enforcement, or even at times federal law enforcement have apprehended undocumented migrants, non-citizens, documented non-citizens, undocumented non-citizens. If they've done crimes, it's the regular law enforcement that actually packs them up. They go through the regular courts. They go through the American criminal justice system. ICE does not have a legitimate law enforcement apprehension function. Okay? ICE's job, both on paper and, in theory and in practice, is to follow through on paperwork violations. Okay? We have made one of the most untrained, one of the most militarized versions of federal law enforcement, a law enforcement apparatus that is tasked with following through on paperwork violations. That's their job. Can you go on CNN or Morning Joe or any of the 7 to 9 a.m., 8 a.m. news shows? What are you talking about? No, of course not. I'm blacklisted. No, I'm blacklisted from CNN and also from MSNBC. Because if liberals were to actually hear from me rather than about me as a dangerous figure, they would probably realize that I'm not some fucking crazy radical and I'm genuinely a very pragmatic person, and they can't have that. It's the same thing that happens all the time with like the Pod Johns. The reason why they fucking hate that the Pod Save America folks have me on all the time is because when that audience hears what I have to say, they're very receptive to it. And CNN understands that. MS Now understands that, which is precisely the reason why they will never have me on. That's the issue. CBS, ABC, MS Now, all these outlets, if they were to have me on for an extended period of time, instead of just like, you know, clipped moments that the Republicans are recirculating over and over again, their audience of liberals are otherwise like very kind, very normal liberals. It's like your parents, chat. They see the clips and they lose their minds and they're like, this is a scary guy that you're listening to. And then you're like, no, you should listen to what he has to say. And when they sit down and watch like longer than 5 minutes, when they sit down and watch a broadcast for longer than 5 minutes, they go, oh yeah, he's a very agreeable person. And you can't have that.
Have criminal records. They may not commit a crime here, but they came here with a criminal record from another country, and they came here illegally, right? I mean, we all come from somewhere. We've all been, you know, brought into this country, and we've come here to build a life. But if you are a criminal, you break that social contract. You don't have the right to stay in the country anymore. Tell that to these women whose faces I'm putting up on the screen now: Laken Riley, Sheridan Gorman, whose family I have spent a lot of time with, Rachel Morin, Jocelyn Nungery. She was 12 years old when she was attacked by these men, who I'll put up after them, who were in the country illegally, had no right to be here. Imagine if a person that you loved in your family was killed or raped or murdered by someone who wasn't even here legally. How would you feel about that?
Well, here's what I say. You know, my heart obviously hurts for those people, but we can't, you know, base entire arguments off of anecdotes, you know, one-off incidents. I mean, the data is not showing that you have thousands of people being murdered or killed by illegal immigrants in the country. That's just not true. We don't have to use fear in our arguments when we're talking about immigration. We want to have law and order, but we want to have a system that works. You want to create a pathway to citizenship for people.
Elijah, I'm not.
The notion that the random barback is responsible for heinous crimes is psychotic. But unfortunately, because the broad majority of Fox News watchers have believed this idea that every undocumented migrant is a rapist in waiting, because the majority of Fox News watchers believe this insanely racist narrative, it's an uphill battle to climb every single time. The overwhelming majority of American pedophiles are white men. They're white men. Does that mean we treat every white man as though they're a pedophile? No, of course not. That's not how anything works. We don't just automatically assume that like every white guy is Jeffrey Epstein, right? That's not how it goes. Every time I bring this up, chat has to literally go, yes! God, I fucking hate my job today. On days like this, I just fucking hate my job. I hate this. I hate it. I hate it.
I'm not talking about fear. I'm talking about reality. I'm talking about reality, and I don't know
Well, the
that it
data
matters.
just doesn't support your argument.
Okay, so
Unfortunately,
you're saying if there's thousands of people or hundreds of people who have committed crimes, you're just going to let them stay because the larger argument doesn't support it, or would you remove someone?
No, if they're committing murders, then they should go to prison. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I understand that some Republicans want to take these individuals and give them a vacation back at home, but they should go to prison. Is what they should do. If they kill.
Yes, that's the good line. That's it. He's doing it again. I don't want to give murderers a free ride back home. Okay? It's ridiculous. You do a crime on U.S. soil, you get apprehended by U.S. law enforcement, you go through the American courts, and you go to American prison. What are we doing? What are we doing?
An American, they should go to prison. But Republicans want to give them a vacation and take them to another country in the Latin American.
I don't think anyone wants to give them a...
Dude, it's awesome. See, it bricked her. She has no response to that. You see that? She has no response. Told you. Gagged her ass, dude. Yeah, she's waffling because she has no response because she's never heard someone speak Haganese. We know how to speak Haganese, okay? I speak it fluently. That's the other reason why Fox News won't have me on either. Put me up there. I'll speak Hog. I'll speak fluent Chud, okay? I'll speak fluent fucking Chud. Law and order. Talk about emptying prisons. No, I want to put motherfuckers in prison. Talk about emptying prisons. Guess what? I want to put the Epstein class in prison, okay? We got to do law and order. Look at how lawless this goddamn president is. I'm talking about putting people who deserve it in prison. Right now, what we're doing is we're putting people who are poor in dire situations in prison permanently. There are a lot of people who harm the masses with regular frequency that stay out of prison. They should be in prison.
Vacation. No one wants to give them a vacation.
Then let's put them in prison.
You're going to win them like you win the unks that despise Nancy Pelosi? I'm like, yeah, you do. If you're corrupt, if you're doing insider trading, you go to prison. If you're in Congress and you do insider trading, jail for you. Jail time. You know? Rick Scott, lock them up. Jail time.
If they're committing murders, right?
But hold on, but we're talking about two different things. I'm saying if they come into the country illegally, which means crossing the border illegally, and they have a rap sheet back in their own country, are you okay with them staying here?
What I'm saying is if a murderer comes into the United States of America, sending them back for them to just come back over the border doesn't make sense to me. If you're a murderer coming to this country, put you in jail. That's all I'm saying. I mean, Republicans want to give these folks a vacation. I'm not interested in giving a criminal a vacation.
I don't know what you're talking about the vacation.
You don't know it's a free ride. It's a free ride back to their home country. She is so flustered. It's awesome.
No, we're talking about removing them for the country that they came to illegally. There's almost no country in the world that allows people to just cross their border.
That's wrong, by the way. That's wrong. Plenty of countries allow refugees in. We're talking about allowing refugees into the country. And if one of those refugees did a crime, there is no other country on the planet that literally automatically deports them. They go to prison. They go to prison in that country. Like, our structure is insane, okay? The notion that, like, if you come to the United States of America and you're seeking asylum, and then in the process you go and you murder an American citizen, we just give you a free ride back home, that's psychotic. There is no country on the planet that does this, okay? Every country on the planet accepts refugees, okay? That's number one. And number two, if someone who is a migrant that commits a crime, especially a heinous crime, no country deports them. They keep them in prison. It doesn't make any sense. This argument is so stupid. And plus, we're talking about the edge cases anyway. What we're talking about is like 0.1% of the migrant population. Okay? We're talking about 0.1% of the migrant population. That's not who we're locking up. That's not who we're deporting. That's not who ICE is deporting. That's why ICE is going to immigration court and waiting out, like staking out immigration court hearings. People who are following the letter of the law. That's why ICE is going to factories. That's why ICE is going to farms. That's why ICE is going to hotels. Those are people who are working. They have their paperwork filed. Their status is in limbo because we refuse to give them the appropriate temporary protected status or the appropriate paperwork necessary. That's it. Yeah, Johnny Somali is in Korean prison for doing fucked up shit in Korea. Yep. Refugees and immigrants are two different things. You're not wrong, but a lot of these people are also seeking asylum. There's a lot of people who are seeking asylum, and then there's a lot of non-citizens, okay? Non-citizens that are cooperating with ICE. The American two-tier immigration structure exists so that there's a constant there's a constant feed of a permanent underclass that can depress wages for the documented labor force that will work for pennies on the dollar. This is how our capital owners operate. Okay? From the perspective of Republicans, there is no difference between refugees. There's no difference between immigrants. There's no difference between non-citizens who are documented. Look at the Haitians. Haitians had temporary protected status in the United States of America. Donald Trump reversed that decision overnight. It's such a controversial decision, and it's so bad for the economy of Springfield, Ohio, that the Republican governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, came out and said, you can't do this. And now we're putting ankle monitors on these people. These folks were legally working on U.S. soil. They had the proper paperwork. The difference between them being a documented non-citizen and an undocumented non-citizen is literally one switch from the Republican government. Do you understand? And we can switch it all the same. We can literally take non-citizens who are currently undocumented and waiting to get their proper paperwork and offer them the proper paperwork like that. Most people we are deporting are here legally. It's not like they're hiding and not on the books. They are people who are here legally awaiting their asylum cases to be finished. Exactly. But the federal government is kidnapping them before their cases are even settled and sending them off to wherever the state feels like. You have Cuban guys in Eswatini prisons indefinitely. It is a massive injustice. It is straightforward Nazi shit, okay? I'm sick and tired of having this back and forth with people who just don't understand this process. It's not that complicated. It's only as complicated as you want it to be, okay? What's also ironic is if you look at the top line, data, while undocumented immigration has skyrocketed in this country in the last 20 to 30 years, you know what's gone down? Homicides have gone down. So even from a dumb guy perspective, which, you'll say this has nothing to do with one another, and that's fair, right? It's not, related to one another, but even the dumb guy argument here does not favor the Republican narrative. I guess you could say that because undocumented migrants and documented migrants are less likely to commit crimes than natural-born U.S. citizens, replacing the natural-born U.S. citizen population with undocumented migrants unironically lowers crime, technically. If you want to play by those, if you want to, utilize the statistics here, that's the real stat. That's the real truth nuke.
and begin a life inside that country. You have to come in legally. Would you not agree with that?
I agree with that, but there's a right and a wrong way to carry out our laws. We have a constitution in this country. We have rule of law. We have a Congress, and we cannot have a situation where we have people terrorizing not just immigrant communities, but terrorizing our communities, shooting random people in the face like Alex Perty. I mean, this is not acceptable way to carry out our laws in this country. The president and the executive branch need to enforce the laws, but they need to obey Congress because Congress is part of our constitution in this country.
Well, let me tell you one thing, Elijah. Congress's laws are the laws that ICE is upholding.
That's not
true.
true.
And I'm just going to ask you one more time because you didn't answer my question. Are you okay?
That's not true. That's what we're seeking to change anyway. Randy Fine caught doing crime on video.
Okay with someone crossing our border illegally, even though that's against the laws of the United States? I'm not talking about how they're removed. Are you okay with them coming in illegally?
I think I answered this question. We have to enforce the laws that we have on the books if someone's coming into the country illegally.
Okay, so they should be removed.
There is a right and a wrong way to enforce the law. We cannot shoot people in the street. We cannot kidnap Americans off the street indiscriminately. You may be okay with that. I'm not okay with that, Martha.
No, I'm not okay with anyone being removed indiscriminately. I'm okay with the laws being upheld, and I'm okay with people doing their jobs. So, well, hopefully you'll come back because we have a lot more to talk about. So, Elijah Manley, thank you. We'll be watching your race tomorrow in Florida in the 20th District. Thank you for joining me. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much, Martha.
Thank you as well.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
If you do make it to Congress, you're going to have to work with this Trump administration.
What is this? Newsmax ended this interview after I turned this question on Trump's accomplishments.
So can you name one significant accomplishment that President Trump has secured since returning to office for a second term?
I think it was signing the Epstein Files Transparency Act into law. I think that is something that we saw overwhelming bipartisan support for in the United States Congress. I wish that it had come about sooner, and I wish that we had the divulgence of these DOJ documents. But I do think that having accountability for the Epstein class is something that many Americans on either side of the political spectrum can agree with.
Dude, they're reaching bottom of the barrel at Newsmax, too. This guy is famous for being annoying on airplanes, dude. I cannot believe that this is oh my God. What this country is in the dumpster, dude. I swear to God, Republicans find new and unique ways of making America worse every day. How is this possible? This guy's claim to fame is literally wearing a shirt that says, "I love Donald Trump," and then filming himself on airplanes being like, And now he's a fucking Newsmax 2 broadcaster. What are we doing?
With. And so I just want to see the follow through there. I've not necessarily seen that. The redactions of Donald Trump's name in these files, which is mentioned more than perhaps any other individual besides Jeffrey Epstein.
No, let's not go
but
there.
I do
That's been debunked over and over and over again. Don't try to throw his name in there.
Let's not go in there. Let's not go there, please. Why not?
That's been completely debunked every single time that's come up. But
that's already in there. I don't need to throw it in there.
That's definitely not one of the greatest things that President Trump has done in his second term. He's ended 8 wars. He's trying to end another one. He's bringing peace to a lot of places. So that's lower on the totem list.
Not Iran.
But I see your point in your strategy in trying to put that out there. Oliver Larkin, thank you so much for joining the Pulse tonight. Appreciate you coming on.
For more from our new poll, we're joined by our Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, great to see you.
Good morning.
It's a really interesting survey. So give us the big picture. These recent Democratic primaries, they were close, especially out in the Midwest. Are Democrats really split over socialism?
With a fresh batch of Republicans dumped for sex crimes and domestic violence this summer, their fall roster is looking stacked. Dog, I know you're the one lone Toby Durden, South Dakota chatter, but I genuinely think at this point, Republicans are leaning into it further where they're like, oh, thank God. I was worried that my favorite candidate didn't actually have a domestic abuse court case. that's like hanging over his head. Thank God we found out that he's actually broken the collarbone of his 2-year-old daughter, allegedly. Like, that's literally at this, like, by 2028, I feel like Republicans are going to be like, oh, this candidate hasn't had a pedophilia allegation. I'm not going to fucking vote for this guy. How can I know to trust him? How could I know to trust him to do pedophilia in office? He must do pedophilia in office. Like, that's where we're headed right now. That's where we're headed. That's where this country is headed right now. They're like, hold on. I'm sorry. You mean to tell me this fucking rhino doesn't have a pedophilia allegation? I'm not voting for him then. I'm not voting for him. Yeah, this is the guy. This is literally the guy who's a Newsmax host, okay?
Trouble in paradise? Those are the reports coming out of Washington today as fractures seem to be emerging in the GOP between the Republicans' pro-pedophilia wing and the party's extremely pro-pedophilia wing. Infighting between the two pedophile coalitions reaching new levels of intensity in recent weeks, leaving GOP leadership to question how best to handle the future of their party's sexual attraction to minors. ONN's Jason Copeland joins us now from Washington with the latest. Jason, you've been in close contact with Republican insiders. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Dwight, well, this is really a battle for the soul of the Republican Party, plain and simple. You know, the GOP has historically welcomed a wide net from pederasts to ephebophiles, and there's always been, you know, sort of moderate support for sexual attraction to children, but many in the base are now asking for a more full-throated endorsement, and like you said, this is really about the party of pedophilia's future, and right now it's looking a little bit split.
And the split playing out very publicly on social media just yesterday, with Senator Tom Tillis replying pretty tepidly to the most recent Epstein Files revelations.
Yeah, that's right. He's publicly calling everything in the Epstein Files cool, which frankly, you know, to pro-pedophilia voters, this comes off as a pretty lukewarm endorsement of child sex trafficking.
Which just isn't going to cut it in the post-Trump era of Republican pedophiles. A new Gallup poll showed only 44% of Republican voters being in favor of pedophilia, with another 43% being very in favor of it.
Yeah, and that's really what we're talking about here, Dwight. You know, for the last 10 years, the entire party has been jockeying for who's going to succeed Donald Trump as the face of American pedophilia. And right now, Republicans are looking closely at some local elections for insight. And this centrist versus extreme dynamic is playing out in Republican primaries across the country. This is Utah State Senator incumbent Matt Riggs staking out the more moderate position on child sex abuse.
I think my record speaks for itself. No one, and I do mean no one, was more upset than me the day Millie Bobby Brown turned 18. I am a staunch and committed pedophile.
Pretty boilerplate talking points.
Exactly. You know, it's a lot of the same old promises that many just aren't believing are going to resonate in exactly the same way anymore. And especially when you...
Is this real? No, man. It's a fucking Onion joke. But it's I mean, it's not that far off from reality. But yes, it's satire, okay? Lol, love that you don't laugh at this. It's real news. I wish it was fake, but it is low-key what is becoming the reality every day. We've let it get totally out of hand in this country, okay?
You compare it alongside the more energized campaigns of some of the more charismatic sex criminals running like...
They don't really care about working-class pedophiles.
His opponent, Brock Granite, political outsider who fired back in a podcast appearance earlier this week.
Seducing underage boys and girls is a bedrock founding principle of the Republican Party. And it sickens me to see my opponent swoop in and try and steal valor from the real pedophiles on the ground. I looked it up. In the Epstein Files, this guy's name appears less than 300 times. It's performative pedophilia.
Now, Senator Riggs has already responded on X saying, quote, I enjoy molesting as much as the next red-blooded American pedophile. I just don't make it my whole campaign. We need to be responsive to kitchen table issues, or the only ones left at the table will be adults. Jason, these are strong words being said against fellow pedophile party members. Is there any sense they can find common ground here and come together on this?
You know, not without strong pedophilic leadership at the top, Dwight. You know,